welcome to Raptors Weekly for the week of August the 3rd. August, and then September, and then training camp. That's how it goes, right, Andrew?
Right around the corner.
Right around the corner, just like a couple of months away before.
Yeah, just a few long months of manufactured topics away.
Yeah. Where do you want to start today? We got. We talked about like pre-show about some things we could talk about, and we landed on a couple.
I think for as any Raptors podcast would be remiss not to just spend the entire time talking about Troy Tulowitzki, David Price, and Drake's rap beef. That's really all I'm interested in talking about. Is that relevant or no? Not so much?
Well, let's start with some Blue Jays talk. I haven't followed the Blue Jays in ages, man. I gave up on them like way back when they traded Sean Green. I don't know if you remember Sean Green.
Okay, well, he went to the Dodgers, yep.
Yeah, he was my player. Him and Delgado had like a thing going, and the Jays were at like on the cusp of things, I guess, under Gord Ash. It was like after like 10 years of being like really crappy, they finally had a decent team with Sean Green and Delgado, and they traded Sean Green, who was like a LA boy. But that kind of soured me out, man. And that was my thing. That was it for me.
Earned.
What about you? You still on the Jays bandwagon or somewhat?
I mean, like, baseball is really hard to give two craps about for the most part, but anytime the Jays are good, I really do enjoy jumping on the bandwagon a little bit. I've gotten into baseball a little in the last couple of years, and it's really fun to just watch a team that mashes every single time they play.
Yeah, they're chokers. I think every time they have high expectations of any sort in preseason, they just come out and they just shit the bed. And when they have no expectations, they come out and do somewhat okay. But with the Jays, the one thing is that once September rolls around and they're in a wild card hunt or a division hunt, even like say 2 games back or whatever it is, they always fold. Like when the pressure is on, these guys just cannot perform, and that's been true of like every Jays incarnation since I don't know 2003, I want to say.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, like, their teams haven't been particularly good during that stretch of time. Like, it could just be that they've played to what they probably should have been. But I think this year you might be surprised. This is a very, very good team.
Yeah, and the recent addition of Price probably. Let's see what it does. They're like in the wild card hunt. The divisions I think is a bit far away, but the wild card's still on.
Yeah, there's 6 games out of the division, but they're only 1 game behind the wild card.
Yeah. And then the wild card has like 2 spots this year, so I think you got to have a playoff. Like
yeah,
I'd settle for that. I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, sure.
1-game playoff. Yeah.
We don't have to kill baseball again.
Yeah. Actually, Barry and Nick from Talking Raptors, they've organized this baseball event right in late September. I don't know if you got the email. It's we're renting a box in Skydome and basically watching the Jays. Hopefully, it's going to be like a close playoff run, and that'd be awesome.
Neat. Right
on. All right.
So basketball then?
Oh yeah, to basketball. Yes. The Raptors. Okay, so what do we got with the Raptors? Nothing new since the last time we spoke. We've got Tim Chisholm's take, who was very rational, and invariably during that level-headed podcast, we still managed to crap on Terrence Ross for like half an hour. So we're gonna avoid that for this podcast. And like one thing that I was kind of just mulling about, as I was assembling a playpen, was Dwayne Casey. Like he's been under criticism from me as well. I think listeners of this podcast kind of email me and tell me you're too harsh on Dwayne Casey, and some people tell me, yeah, you're bang on. So it's kind of split. His what we think of Dwayne Casey is kind of split across the fan base right now. So the question I guess I ask is like, what does he have to do over the first, say, I don't know, 10, 15 games of the season to really like win you as a fan of his coaching style? Because last year he lost a lot of fans or got a lot of criticism. But what does he have to do for the first, like, say, 2-3 weeks of the season for you to say, like, you know what, yeah, this is the guy who can lead this roster forward?
For me, he has to show the ability to adapt. I think what was so frustrating last year is that we saw all of the limitations of how they were playing and who they were playing early on in the season, and then they just refused to change that. They refused to adapt to the modern NBA offenses and how it was the kind of teams that gave them problem with spread floor shooting. We were just doing it over and over and over again, and the Raptors just couldn't adjust and were playing all of the same. It seemed like they were making all of them same mistakes as the season wore on. And I think that if we're going to support a coaching staff moving forward, I think we're going to need to see them, first and foremost, just instead of being stubborn about playing a certain way or playing certain people, demonstrate an ability to change and adapt and have a different way that they're trying to tackle certain pick and roll formations and offenses, and and actually try giving the ball to Valanciunas and formulating a different kind of offense and just trying to fix the mistakes that they made last year.
Yeah.
Whether or not it works out, I'm not that like he doesn't need to come out of the gate being a top 10 NBA offense and defense. But for me, I just need to see that there's at least a work in progress where they're trying to make changes and trying new things.
Like one point somebody made to me was that like last year we talked about adaptability of Dwayne Casey, and you could argue that on offense at least he adapted to the players he had at his disposal,
Certainly.
namely Lou Williams. He really catered the offense towards certain players, Lowry and Lou Williams and DeRozan. It's just that the style of play was still way way too I don't know what the word is. Like he went the other way. Like there's a middle ground somewhere between
Yeah.
catering to your players and actually having a functioning offense, which is like kind of like values ball distribution and a spread court. But last year he definitely structured his offense to suit particular types of players. But I just felt that he went overboard with it, and he just lost sight of the larger picture.
Yeah, and I think that we started to see it really. Teams really figured out how to attack that in somewhere around early February and just really take that away and defend it. And everyone's shooting percentages for the most part started coming down from their go-to spots. And I mean that was the whole point of the offense that you're talking about. Like they catered it around the particular styles of the ball dominant players that they had, and then tried to figure out how to get them those exact shots that they liked. And that worked to start the season, but teams really figured out how to game for that pretty quickly once they had a few months to scout that offense. And, you know, throughout the months of February, it became obvious that teams knew how to play against it, and there was no attempt to adapt that and change things and introduce some different themes or plays or anything to go away from that as the season went on. So they're going to need to show an ability to change if whatever they're doing isn't working.
And just one thing that kind of came to mind. Like on Twitter, there was a person at CJ Sportsnet. He kind of had a spreadsheet on everything, and he was talking about like players playing a certain types of position, and he discovered that Terrence Ross played 80% of his minutes at small forward last year.
Mm-hmm.
And we're switching to a Terrence Ross topic now, Andrew, by the way.
Okay, I see that. See what you did.
Is that 80% of his minutes were played at small forward, and and he struggled at it, right? And Dwayne Casey has kind of said it 2 or 3 times already this offseason that like one of the largest reasons why these guys struggled, DeRozan and Ross defensively, was that they were being asked to guard people they're not actually physically able to guard. And I looked at like 82 games. I checked out some numbers there, and they're all confusing, man. I don't know how the percentages there work. But
Yeah.
but this guy actually, Chris Daw at CJ Sportsnet, he did some analysis. He's got a whole spreadsheet going. 80% of Ross's minutes were played at small forward. So do we see Ross shifting over to playing basically a backup shooting guard next year? Like, do you see that being his a more comfortable position for him, where he doesn't have to defend a top three and he can defend twos? How has he done defending twos anyway?
I don't have any particular spreadsheets in front of me to break that
Mm.
down, but like it certainly does seem that like he struggles when there's someone who can overpower him. Like he's a
Mm.
pretty slight guy. He's crazy athletic, but it's not a strength game. Like that's not his game. And he also is someone who seems to really be confidence driven as far as when he struggles, then it just affects everything else. Like when he's getting beaten defensively or when he's getting muscled away from something or someone's driving on him and he can't contain it, he seems to get down, and that really starts to affect him just running through screen. Like when he's not, has a bad attitude, it seems like he really struggles to follow his man through screens, which is something that you'd be doing more guarding twos. So he's someone who it seems like should be able to follow someone around through screens and try to follow a knockdown shooter guarding a shooting guard, but he has struggled at that as well. I don't know if that's an effort or an understanding problem, but I mean, like there's not a lot he was good at defensively last year. I always try to be the one person to say nice things about Terrence Ross, but defensively it's a struggle.
Yeah. And like I was looking at some wingspan numbers, right? Right. He's 6'7", but his wingspan is about 6'7" as well. It's not a huge wingspan. Whereas if you compare it to a guy like if you go back in the time machine and you look at somebody like Jamario Moon, who was like well, 6'7.5" or so he was with shoes. His wingspan was like 6'11". Like that's huge. That's a huge difference, and I think that's what afforded those guys like better defense. Not necessarily because they were quicker than Ross, because Ross is a pretty quick player, but he he can't afford to lay off people and still defend them. He kind of has to be uptight because he doesn't have that reach basically where he can contest a jumper and then still be able to like reach out with his arms and kind of kind of play the drive and the shot at the same time. He doesn't have that. Like his wingspan is comparable to someone like DeLon Wright, who's like shorter but has a same wingspan. So I think a couple of podcasts ago you made the point that height doesn't really matter; it's wingspan. And when I look
Yeah.
at Terrence Ross's wingspan, I see that being limiting him defensively. I'm not saying there aren't other issues, but that's a physical limitation he has.
Sure, certainly. I mean, there's you definitely have a point there where he trying to play him bigger than he is. Like you can say, oh, he's 6'7", he should be able to guard small forwards. But yeah, if his standing reach is not extra long for that height, then as we've talked about before, 6'7" is not always 6'7", and he's a slight guy too. He's not a big guy, so if he's got to play up on them, and you're guarding a lot of the small, like there's some big brutish small forwards in the Eastern Conference,
Mm-hmm.
and if they're able to power you off of them when you do play up close on them, it really makes it hard to guard.
Yes, DeMar DeRozan has a 6'9" wingspan. This is like coming out of college. I'm assuming it didn't grow since. So he should be a better defender, and I think he is. Like if you had to put DeMar DeRozan and Terrence Ross man to man, and pick who's a better defender, I would Andrew kind of lean towards DeRozan just because he seems to know the angles at least. So he at least understands a larger part of the game, so he knows what he has to do to be a better defender. Ross is kind of still shaky on that end. What do you think?
No, I think DeRozan is definitely a better defender than Ross. I think most of DeRozan's defensive shortcomings tend to come in when he's guarding off ball and getting lost a little
Yeah.
bit or gambling for steals. But
Yeah.
on the ball, I think he's actually a fairly good defender and definitely better than Terrence Ross.
Yeah.
Terrence Ross looked like he was. I mean, a couple seasons ago, remember that was when Casey was touting him as their stopper, and they were really pushing hard the PR train for Terrence Ross as a defensive guy, and that has really not become the case.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. I don't think DeRozan will ever be a lockdown defender, but that's why there's hope for him. That max contract we always talk about, like what he needs to do to get it. Tim Chisholm said, a 3-point shot and some better defense, and I think both those things are achievable. And the defensively, like he's played good defense in spurts all last season. Like when he came back from injury, he was really intelligent in the way he played. I think there's still hope for him to become a slightly above average defender in this league. Not Tony Allen type, but it's like somewhere between, I don't know, pick a guy for me.
Well, I mean, like, I think that like there's a world of difference between average or slightly above average and Tony Allen level. I think
Yeah.
DeMar DeRozan is already an above average defender. I just think that if you want to talk about him being considered as like a very good defensive player, he's got a long way to go.
Yeah, I think he's an
He's
above
maybe
average defender. I kind of disagree there.
okay.
Kind of disagree
Like,
there.
I mean, maybe the conversation comes down to like what we're pegging as an average defender,
Hmm.
but
Terrence Ross is an average defender.
okay. And do you think DeMar is as good or better
I think
or Terrence than Terrence?
he's better. I think in every facet of defense than Terrence Ross.
Okay, so doesn't that make him an above average defender then?
He's slightly above average. He needs to be like,
Oh,
yeah, I see what you're saying. He's got to get better. Yeah.
okay, sure.
I hear you. I hear you on that. Yeah, Terrence Ross, if he's an average, DeMar DeRozan a little better. He's got to get a little better. But the point is that he has the tools and the athleticism and the wingspan to actually become a decent defender in this league. And he hasn't gotten there yet, but I think he might. He might. So I know you've been checking out the Drew League casually,
Super
and
cash.
he's been jacking up a lot of shots there and making a lot of threes. We talked about his defense momentarily, but from an offensive perspective, any improvements in his jumper, Andrew?
I mean, it's hard to know whether or not him hitting some threes in the Drew League means that he's notably improved that shot. But I think that we've talked a lot on this podcast about how DeMar improving his three-pointer is one of, if not the most important things he needs to do to evolve his offensive game. And it seems like he's making a concerted effort to shoot as many threes as possible in the Drew League, which is a positive sign of the fact that that's what he's making his focus about. I mean, that's 3 summers running now, right? Where the stories are he's working on a 3-point shot, he's developing a 3-point shot. But I mean, he closed out the season last year shooting well from three, and if he's continuing to make that his big push, and he can come back and actually shoot threes, then when we were talking about a few weeks ago whether or not DeMar is capable of being a max player, we said that really the one thing holding him back is being a shooting guard who can't be a knockdown 3-point shooter. And if he can come back, like if he can shoot 35, 36% from three and get to the line 11 times a game, that's an incredibly valuable NBA player. So I'm hoping that what we've seen in the Drew League is a sign of things to come.
Mm. And given his history of making small improvements, it's no surprise if he comes back with a little something extra.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's a work.
so shifting gears a little bit and talking about Jonas, he's going to be playing in Europe later this summer. But for now, he's been in the gym and he's been working with the Raptors coaching staff on doing some things differently. We talked about this previously as well. He's working on a little jumper. He's trying to get more quick. He's trying to basically fit into what the system Dwayne Casey has in mind for next season. And Andrew, like same question with Dwayne Casey, like given the summer of trying to become a quicker center, what do you think he has to show in the first say month and a half of the season that that convinces you that he can actually get playing time in the fourth quarter and become the center for the Raptors going forward? Like, what are your realistic expectations of Jonas given his summer transformation?
Yeah, I think when we talk about Jonas needing to be quicker, I don't think we're necessarily saying like he's running agility drills and working on his fast twitch muscles and he just needs to get physically quicker. Like that,
Maybe he
certainly
is.
there's an element of that, a truth to that, but I think that it's decision making. Like how many times have we seen Jonas get the ball in the post and then just wait, or do that nonsense little pump fake that he does 2 or 3 or 4 times, and he takes a long time to decide what it is he's going to do or how he's going to do it. And one of the reasons why he's struggled so much at kicking the ball back out of the post is because he's just spent so much time slowly getting into his shot that there's not a lot of time left in the shot. Like he's got to put a shot up, or he's there are problems there. And I think that if they can get him to analyze what's available to him, because most of the time when he does put a post move up, like he's got a very good percentage on it. So if they can get him to decide to attack quicker and then or kick the ball out or just analyze whether he's got a single team, a double team, I think they're probably hoping to use him more as a post up threat this year with four shooters around him. There's a lot of chatter around the NBA about the value of the post up and teams looking to orient that kind of an offense. And if he can be a smart and a quick decision maker, giving a lot more of the clock for the team to work with around him, then I mean the sky's the limit for what he could help do in as far as opening up the offense goes. But he has a lot of work to do to get comfortable enough to make quick decisions and do things quickly.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yes, same theme really. It's decision making. It's not just showing your cards to everybody as soon as you catch the ball. It's just like he caught the ball last year and then he looked around with the dribble still unused, but you knew what he was going to do for the next 10 seconds. And
Yep.
it had a chance. The guard had enough time to come down and swipe at it. He had a guy running the baseline, which was blind to him, so he lost the ball that way. And then the passing lanes last year weren't great out of the post, so that didn't really help him either. So combine all these things together, and you got a guy who has the ball with him in his hands and who has no idea what he has to do with it. And partially it's his fault for not being decisive, and also it's partially on how the offense is structured, where you just don't have that many outlets or the spacing isn't that great. But for me, just keep things simple. First, you got that jumper. It's okay. It's not a great jumper, but it's a jumper that he can I think hit even last year with like a 40% accuracy. That's got to go to like 40-45 within the 8 to 10 range. Just start knocking that down without a pump fake. Forget the pump fake. Because unless you actually make that jumper for the first 3 months of the season, nobody's biting on that pump fake. So pocket the pump fake and just shoot the jumper. Hopefully you start making it for the first 2-3 months of the season, and that's when you start using the pump fake.
Yeah,
So that's
and I like
yeah. Go ahead.
at least get a pump fake that even loosely resembles your shot too. Like Jonas's shot when he actually shoots it, like it's not a deep knee bend, and it's not like it's just pretty much like it's your standard 7 foot Euro shot, like just the sort of flick and half jump.
Yeah.
Whereas when he's pump faking, like he bends halfway down, he twists one leg out,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it is so telegraphed that no one bites because you can. He's not shooting. He's doing that weird thing he does.
Yeah, it's like I think only Enos Kanter fell on that pump fake last year. I think he was the only
Yeah,
one.
which is like the Enes Kanter is the basement of NBA defense.
Yeah, and second, other than the jumper, is just slightly quicker decision making. I think he's got to keep his moves simple. Uh, like he's got a few moves. He's got the up and under. He's got the hook. He bends his shoulder with his left shoulder. He drives in with that. So he's got to do just two or three moves, but keep it really simple. My favorite move of his is the two dribbles in and the right-handed hook. I think that's a move that he's close to. Like that's his best move so far. And if he just focuses on executing that with like lightning quick efficiency, that's going to be good enough for him. Like that's one move where he's tall enough, he's got enough reach that it's unblockable, and it's just like perfecting that. It's like Shaq, man. In the early '90s, Shaq had one move, right? And he just did that every single time, and it worked. So I'm not saying Jonas is Shaq, but the whole idea is that you got one move, just perfect that, and that's going to be your bread and butter for like for most of the season.
Yep, and then if they can't defend and they start double teaming, just look to where to kick it out. Like it is very simple sometimes, and I think that's you nailed it. Where he just needs to be able to rely on the things that he's doing well, and be able to make the decision to go to that move quickly, see where help's coming from. If the help's coming from somewhere you can put the ball, get the pass there. If there's no help coming, then attack and learn when to time your attack, and just I think that's what they're working on, just getting his timing right and getting his confidence and comfortableness in that offense ready.
Right. So let's take a quick break, and during the break, Andrew and I will think about something else to talk about, and come back with those something else's after the break. Welcome back to part 2 and the final part of Raptors Weekly for this week. Andrew, we talked over the break, and I think this really needs to be addressed from a Raptors blog. There's a Drake versus Meek Mill thing going on.
Drake versus Meek, choose sides.
Yeah, you got to choose sides, and let me just first start with you, man. I'm guessing you're supporting Drake on this one, obviously.
Six God, got to.
What's your rationale here?
Didn't really know who Meek was until this started, and Drake's my boy.
Yeah. So I've been following this on Twitter and whatnot, and there's like a subreddit called Black People Twitter, which is like one of the best websites ever, and check it out. It's r/Black People Twitter on Reddit, so it's pretty good. I just feel bad for this Meek Mill dude, because he's getting called out by everybody, like Norm Kelly from the Toronto City Council. Like he's on his case. You look at his replies, and he's just getting assaulted, and then like there's this whole thing about him being married to Nikki, and
Meek started it. Yeah. Meek brought this on himself, though.
Yeah, it's not good. So even though I'm a Drake fan and I want him to annihilate this dude, I think we got to start the invoke the mercy rule at some point here.
Yeah, like it's. I mean, Meek was just getting roasted and roasted before he released his diss track, and then the onslaught of memes just dismissing his diss track once it finally came out was. I think more people. I know pretty much everyone has seen the memes making fun of that, and I'm not even sure if as many people have actually listened to the diss track that they're laughing at. Like they're in on the joke and laughing at Meek, and they haven't even heard his reply.
I checked out the lyrics of his return or diss track or whatever, and they were kind of tame. They were tame. Not that Drake's were like so powerful that they demolished this guy, but I just thought both sides were kind of tame. But definitely Meek's were a lot tamer, man. It was a little disappointing. It was almost like Wizards versus Raptors, the playoffs.
Yeah.
With Drake being the Wizards in this case, so I was a little disappointed that we're not getting enough of a response from Meek. But that's what keeps you occupied in the summertime, I guess.
Hey man, we got to cheer for the Wizards this time around. That's a lot more satisfying. Like I would not have wanted to be a Meek fan and be a Raptors fan. Like that's that's a lot of heavy losses in a little while.
Yeah. But the Wizards have their own rapper. It's not Meek. It's Wale. It's Wale. Yeah. So
who beefs with Toronto color commentator.
Yeah. Matt Devlin, who's going to be on the show in a couple of weeks, I think. I think he agreed to do an interview, so he might be on. So maybe I'll bring you on and we can kind of grill Matt Devlin about the Raptors. Yeah. And I think Meek Mill's NBA association is Philly, right? Because he's from Philly.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So another winner.
Yeah, so uh, let's talk about Philly for a bit while we're talking about them, man. What did you think of their draft? Drafting another big man. This idea of accumulating big seems to be quite high on their list.
I think it's the idea of trying to accumulate the best possible assets, and
How's that
I mean,
working out for the last 4 years?
yeah, I mean, it depends. Like, I don't think they want to be good yet, so that's panning out for them. But like Embiid might not is not going to play again this year, so it's not like they have a logjam at that position. Like they're going for the highest possible ceiling, regardless of risk type draft picks. Like that's what all three of these guys have been. I mean, I don't think Julio Okafor is a high risk draft pick. I think that's them saying this is the guy who was expected to be the number one pick for most of the last year and is a very good NBA player already, and we're taking him. And I think that makes sense for them. Like the Okafor pick was the best player on the board, probably. So I get it. If Embiid is healthy and ready to go, then they've got a bit of a problem there. But look, either Embiid can't come back and you have that spot filled, or if Embiid can come back, you have maybe two guys who can play together and are devastating, or you try to trade one of those guys. And it's not the ideal path. Like no matter what happens, they're still a long way away. They're still 2 years away from being 2 years away. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, what do you think of this Philly thing? If you're a Philly fan, are you just fed up with it?
I think I have.
Or what?
If you go into Twitter trends, because they have this hashtag going called "Trust the Process,"
Trust the
right?
process. Yeah.
That's their thing. And if you look at the popularity of the "Trust the Process" hashtag over the last couple of years, it's gone down considerably. I think
Yeah.
even at this point, they expect it to be competing at some level, especially in the Atlantic and the East. It's not that with Philly, it's not so much that they don't have young talent. It's that even the young talent they have haven't made a dent on the floor. Like they're as bad as they were 3 years ago than they are today. There hasn't been one player you could say, oh, that guy over the last 3 years has developed into something new. The only guy they kind of had who had got himself a bit of a reputation was MCW, and they shipped him. Granted, he's not much of a player, but that
No, I'm fine with shipping MCW because like I'm part
terrible
of the
shooter,
Michael
terrible
Carter
shooter.
Williams is incredibly overrated, and yeah, like
Yeah.
can't.
But can you point me to one Philly player that's actually progressed over the last 3 years and now he's ready to not just become not say become a star, but just someone you can say he might become a star? Like, is there one player?
No, I don't think anyone on their roster they can say is going to be a star. I think that they can say like Nerlens Noel got better, and you can definitely see a trend where Nerlens Noel could be a very good player in the league.
He's
I
like
mean
a Theo
that's not
Ratliff type dude. Like
yeah that's not
that's
nothing.
his, that's not
But
nothing, but that's not the guy who's going to carry you to the next
no,
level.
absolutely not.
Yeah. So if you look
But
at
I
the
mean like
yeah, go ahead.
it's really hard. It's really hard to get superstars and stars even in the draft. Like it's not the whole idea that here's trust in the process, for example. Like that's the process does not guarantee results. It is the process they are deciding to go to, and you trust it because otherwise you will pull your goddamn hair out and go insane. Like I think that's why trust the process is such a thing,
Mm.
because you have to believe in it, or else you realize that it's just a dumpster fire that you have playing for you, and you're going to get driven insane.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. And I think some Raptor fans go back to like a couple of years ago when they had a chance to at least be in this in the hunt for Andrew Wiggins. Um, but if you look at that draft, I mean, who did you have beyond Andrew Wiggins? And the chance of the Raptors getting a number one pick in that year were extremely low because they didn't they had already a half decent record where the number one pick was kind of out of the question. But beyond Andrew Wiggins, who did the Raptors have? Like people who were advocating tanking way back. I'd say even today they've been proven wrong because beyond Andrew Wiggins, there's not any surefire guarantees in that draft.
I mean, it's tough. Like the thing is, even like this is the first year in how long now where the last place team has gotten. I mean, to go back to your question first of all, like Jabari Parker is in that draft. I think Jabari Parker could end up being very very good, but aside from those top two guys, um, even if you're the worst team in the league, like Minnesota was this year, best case scenario, you only have a 25% chance of getting that pick, which means you have a 75% chance of not getting the top pick.
Mm-hmm.
That's it's really hard to do. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the trick to rebuilding is getting a superstar or a couple stars of some kind, and there is no guaranteed way to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and then just on the Philly talk here, I don't know why we're talking about them so much, but then they got Stauskas, right? So he plays for them now. That was
Staskis?
yeah,
Staskis?
yeah. They
Yeah.
they acquired him from Sacramento, which was he might be like one of their better players on that team, believe it or not.
They'll
So
definitely be one of their better shooters. They were not a good shooting team.
yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I think the whole idea of like drafting the BPA continually year after year is silly. And at some point, they're going to have to start trading these guys to get some actual talent in here. So they got Noels, Okafor, Embiid. You can't build a team with those three guys. I just don't think so. I think you got to trade one of them at some point. And Embiid's stock value is so low at this point that he's not going to fetch you anything. So it's almost a bit of a waste.
Yeah.
Um, Andrew, what else you want to cover in this podcast before we sign off? Anything else left to unearth?
I don't know how much we have left to cover. I think we've. Do you want to tell the fans about the children's outdoor play set you've been building this weekend?
Yeah, that's too much pain for that one. I guess we could talk about Nicholas Batum and like what he said.
Yeah.
Apparently, Grandland had a little article by Zach Lowe, and he mentioned that Nicholas Batum's people are saying that Nicholas Batum wants to play in Toronto, and then Batum actually tweeted out like a SNL, like a still frame saying, "What? Really?" Kind of like that. But then they showed it to Zach Lowe, and Zach Lowe actually stood by what he had said and said that his people actually have said that in the past. So projecting he's going to be a free agent next year. The Raptors did get Carroll this year. Thoughts on Nicholas Batum next year if the Raptors lose DeMar DeRozan?
Yes, 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 yes. That would be very exciting. That would make me very, very happy. I think Will and I had a few different times where every time we would talk about someone who the Raptors should target in trades or maybe try to get this summer or who would be a good fit, like Batum's name has been coming up on this podcast for months now, and look like positional versatility, like that's what we talked about when we thought the Raptors would possibly get Wes Matthews as well. Is if you have guys that can shoot and defend, whether they play 2, 3, or 4 is fluid. Like you can push Damari Carroll to the 4, you can play Batum at the 2 or the 3. Like there's a lot of possibilities that someone like that who sees the floor really well, who guards multiple positions, who can shoot and make smart. Like Batum is a very good player and really helps open up a lot of things that you can do on both ends of the floor, and he'd be fantastic to have.
I think
And he wants to come here, which is crazy.
if you're Masai Ujiri, you got to keep one eye on that situation in case DeMar DeRozan is not extendable or like you just got to be cognizant of what's happening in Batum because that like if DeMar DeRozan leaves for whatever reason and you replace him with Nick Batum, I think you've done okay. I think
Yeah.
overall you've come out maybe even a better team. Overall, there's some allegations that he's a bit soft and all that. I don't necessarily buy that. I think he's a
He's
fine
not
player.
soft. He punches dudes in the balls.
Yeah, well, that some might call that a little soft. But
To me.
yeah, I wouldn't mind that transition. Like if that's what we got to settle for if DeRozan leaves, yeah, sign me up for that.
Yeah, I mean, like he's playing. He's going to Charlotte, right? That's who traded for him.
Yeah,
Or
he's not staying
yeah.
there.
So no, he's not staying there. And the other thing is, like, if Charlotte's not going to make the playoffs again, or if things just aren't going well for them, then you can look to maybe pick him up near the trade deadline. Like, if you can talk with his people and you get a feeling like he will resign, then trying to make a late season trade for him and then get his bird rights to help to resign him and DeMar and stay under the cap is a possibility there.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and the other piece of news was I'm just checking out the site on the left-hand column, the putbacks. It's Raptors announcing some assistant coaches: Jerry Stackhouse, Andy Greer, and Rex Kalamian are the new coaches here. I guess just thoughts on Stackhouse. As a player, I definitely enjoyed him. He reminded me a
Yeah,
bit of the Predator, the way he looked.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's been some interesting stories and some good interviews that have come out with Stackhouse over the last few years. He definitely brings some toughness, and he's not afraid to be a leader and talk about things. So I don't know.
That should be
Maybe
fun.
that'll translate. Like I'm reaching. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think I had asked a question to Tim Chisholm a couple of podcasts ago. I'll ask you a similar one. Andrew, if you had to buy a jersey, if you got to wear a jersey, it's got to be one of these two people. You got to tell me which one and why. All right?
Okay.
So, first one is Bruno Caboclo. You got to maybe buy his jersey. You got to wear his jersey. Or Norman Powell. Norman Powell. Norman Powell or Bruno Caboclo. Which one does Andrew buy and wear on the streets of Toronto?
Uh, Let's go Caboclo
Really?
because I love what I saw from Powell, but I think that they've invested so much in Caboclo that one of the problems with the jerseys is how many times do you buy a jersey and then a year later that guy's not on the team and you feel like an idiot walking around in the jersey. So I think that if nothing else, I think Caboclo will still be with the franchise in 3 years, whether or not he's playing on the floor or not. So I can at least wear the jersey. Whereas with Powell, I love what I saw from him, but I just don't know if he's still going to be here.
I guess what I didn't tell you is that the Caboclo jerseys for the Raptors 905, so
Okay.
that's a very
Okay.
good too. Has that actually ever happened to you? You bought a jersey and the guy got traded or never played, and you were like, what the hell?
I'm not really a jersey guy. I don't own a lot of jerseys. I have one basketball jersey. It was given to me, but there are lots of people for whom I know that that is definitely a thing.
Something happened to me in an Arsenal jersey. There's a player called Carlos Vela, and who I thought was going to be huge, but I bought his jersey, custom order, $120 and all that, and then he got sold. So that was the
Yep.
end of that. So it's not good. And I'm not a jersey guy either. My frame doesn't actually suit jerseys. I'm more of a, I don't know, soccer jersey guy, I guess.
Well,
But,
I wrote a nonsense article about this on the website a couple years ago, where it's like if you're going to a game, then I get wearing jerseys, or if you're gonna go to just hang out and watch the game at someone's house or something. But like a sports jersey as an article of clothing for a grown man is not a good look on just a regular piece of fashion. Not a good look.
mm. You think so?
I mean, like soccer jerseys are a little bit different because they're more just like a t-shirt, for example. But like a North American football jersey or a basketball jersey it's a tougher take me serious sell. Like it's
Yeah.
hard to be taken seriously when you're just walking around in a Kobe Bryant jersey or an Adrian Peterson jersey.
I think the worst are baseball jerseys. Those definitely can't be worn out.
Yeah,
Y-
yeah.
That
Also on that list.
kind of looks like a cardigan almost. Does not go well.
Yeah, baseball jerseys are weird. Like for considering they're supposed to be for sports and athletic wear, like there's no one for whom a baseball jersey fits properly. It's just this loose hanging piece of
Yeah.
sweater shirt. You're right.
It's
Awkward.
closer to a pajama shirt than it is an outdoor shirt, I'd say.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Good call.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we got to wrap it up, man.
I
It's
think it's
been
time.
I think it's time, yeah, definitely. So we'll see you guys again next week, hopefully, as the podcast continues. What do we say? 2 more months, August and September, and then it's Media Day.
What?
Yep. See you guys later. Bye bye.
Later.